Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So yesterday, Rolling Stone journalist Hunter Walker published an exclusive story about something that I think the media is really kind of missing. They're kind of like missing the plot line. You guys may have heard about this. They covered a story about numerous Republican lawmakers being involved in the planning of the January 6th protests. Now, that seems to be the top line story. That seems to be what everybody's focusing on, but that's not illegal. It's not illegal to plan a protest or be involved in the planning of a protest. What the bigger story should have been was about the blanket pardon that was offered to some of the people who were protesting on Trump's behalf. That would be illegal. That is illegal. That was allegedly offered to people who planned and organized January 6th protests. And in addition, these planners and organizers say that they held, like I said, meetings with Congress members, White House staff, and former campaign staff for Donald Trump to plan these January 6th events. So they name names, and they seem to lay blame for the violence at the feet of Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, as well as the Stop the Steal organizer, Ali Alexander. And I wanted to give you guys more details about Alexander than what you may have already heard, because he's a key figure here. So here's the deal. According to the Rolling Stone journalist, he interviewed two people, one which he refers to as an organizer and the other as a planner. And these two people confirmed that they and others have been informally speaking with members of Congress who were investigating the domestic terrorist attack at the Capitol. And they say that they expect to testify publicly on the matter. They have no problem doing so. Rolling Stone says that the two people also confirmed that, quote, multiple members of Congress were intimately involved in planning both Trump's efforts to overturn his election loss and the January 6th events. And these planning meetings involved top congressional staff members. Again, not illegal, right? But the Congress members specifically named are Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, Lauren Boebert, Mo Brooks, Madison Cawthorn, Andy Biggs, and Louis Gohmert. And the organizer told Rolling Stone, quote, I remember Marjorie Taylor Greene specifically. I remember talking to probably close to a dozen other members at one point or another, or their staffs. We would talk to Boebert's team, Cawthorn's team, Gosar's team, like back to back to back to back to back. And both the organizer and the planner provided Rolling Stone with documentary evidence showing that they were in communication with Boebert and Gosar on January 6th. So this isn't just their word against these people, these Congress people. They have actual proof. But their allegations against Congressman Gosar, who's a congressman in Arizona, are the most disturbing. Like I said, both the organizer and the planner say that Gosar offered a, quote, blanket pardon in regard to another unrelated investigation that's ongoing. And they say that he made that offer to encourage them to plan Stop the Steal events. They also say that Gosar's chief of staff, a man named Thomas Van Flein, took part in these conversations about the pardon, as well as the efforts to dispute election results. The organizer told Rolling Stone, quote, our impression was that it was a done deal, that he'd spoken to the president about it in the Oval in a meeting about pardons, and that our names came up. They were working on submitting the paperwork and getting members of the House Freedom Caucus to sign on as a show of support. The organizer went on to say that they received, quote, several assurances about the pardon, and that Gosar told them, quote, I was just going over the list of pardons, and we just wanted to tell you guys how much we appreciate all the hard work you've been doing. And although the organizer says that the pardon was not the sole motivator in planning these events, this person, he or she, it was obvious from what they told to Rolling Stone that they're not happy that it never materialized. The organizer said, quote, "I would have done it either way, with or without the pardon. I do truly believe in this country, but to use something like that and put it on the table when someone is so desperate, it's really not good business." Yeah, you think? Yeah, it's not good anything. You can't dangle a pardon in exchange for something. And remember, Gosar was previously named in a live stream as one of 3 congresspeople who, quote, schemed to put, quote, maximum pressure on Congress while they were voting. So those were direct quotes from Stop the Steal organizer, Ali Alexander. And like I said, he should be, along with this blanket pardon, he should be the main story. First of all, a lot of people may not know this, but Ali Alexander didn't come up with the name Stop the Steal. The original Stop the Steal website and that domain name was set up by Roger Stone, and it was set up before the 2016 election. That's how long they've been planning to use a stolen election as an excuse in case Trump lost. This all seems to be premeditated. So anyway, Alexander is the one who planned an event on January 6th. He planned an event called the Wild Protest, which billed Green and Gosar and Boebert as featured speakers. And it was supposed to take place right after Trump's speech at the Ellipse. But these 2 sources who spoke to Rolling Stone say that they raised concerns about Alexander's Wild Protest event with Mark Meadows, who, by the way, according to them, was intimately involved in the January 6th planning. And they describe Meadows as having had an opportunity to prevent the violence, because apparently at some point, Alexander agreed not to host this wild protest. He said, okay, I won't do it. But the organizers said that, quote, despite making a deal, they plowed forward with their own thing at the Capitol on January 6th anyway. We ended up escalating that to everybody we could, including Meadows. Now, these sources say their concern about Alexander stemmed from the fact that he's been seen with various militia groups, including the Oath Keepers, who we all know took part in January 6th. But there's also another group that I hadn't heard of before that apparently he's involved with or has some sort of affiliation with, and he's been seen with. They're called the First Amendment Praetorians. And these sources claimed that they were worried about the proximity between the Capitol and where Alexander planned to hold his event, this wild protest. The planners said, quote, they knew that they weren't there to sing Kumbaya and like put up a peace sign. These freaking people were angry. So that's what they claim was problematic about Alexander. Here's what I find problematic about Ali Alexander, and here's why everyone with a brain, with 2 brain cells, should have been concerned about Alexander and his event that day and his events leading up to that day. He has a history of violent laced remarks. One might even call it incitement. So after the election, just to give you some examples, after the election, Alexander tweeted that he was willing to sacrifice his life to protect or stop the election from being stolen. Okay. And by the way, the Arizona GOP party retweeted that and said something to the effect of, are you? Like they encouraged it, like, hey, other people should be willing to sacrifice their life for this fake election theft. And at an Arizona State Capitol rally on December 19th, Alexander told a crowd of Trump supporters, quote, One of our organizers in one state said, "We're nice patriots. We don't throw bricks." I leaned over and I said, "Not yet, not yet. Haven't you read about a little tar and feathering? Those were second-degree burns. We're going to convince them to not certify the vote on January 6th by marching hundreds of thousands, if not millions of patriots to sit their butts in DC and close that city down, right? And if we have to explore options after that, yet. So that became the theme of the night. He kept using the word yet, and it was pretty apparent that he was using the word yet as a euphemism for violence, because the crowd started cheering and then they were yelling and they were saying things like, quote, noose and nothing's off the table. So they knew exactly what he meant. And Alexander also then tweeted on December 30th saying, quote, "If they do this, everyone can guess what me and 500,000 others will do to that building. 1776 is always an option." And he placed an asterisk before and after the word always. So he's telling people, this needs to be a revolution. This needs to be war. Then one day prior to the Capitol attack, January 5th, Alexander held an event in DC and he led Trump supporters in a chant yelling, quote, "Victory or death." So that's something you can look up. You can see the video. It's still up online. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of his allegedly violent remarks leading up to January 6th, including just the day before. But it gives you some idea as to why everyone should have had an issue with his involvement. Not to mention the fact that he's a literally twice convicted felon, by the way. I know you guys are shocked to hear that. And on top of all that, he appears to be one tablecloth short of a picnic, because after January 6th, he went into hiding. That's not what makes him a little, but he went into hiding and he tried to get his followers to send him $2,000 a day. He said he needed it for security and living expenses. And he told his followers that, quote, "Witches and Wiccans are putting hexes and curses on us." Yeah, that honestly, it shouldn't have surprised anyone, because in 2020, all of a sudden, he started wearing orange all the time. And he told his followers, quote, "God gave me the color orange in December 2019. He told me orange would be the color of 2020. I've come to learn it means God's power." I mean, I guess he was right that orange was the color of 2020, since, so many Trump supporters are being arrested. I mean, he was off by a year, but, let's be fair. He was right. Orange. Yeah. Orange jumpsuits. They're in right now. Anyway, back to the Rolling Stone sources and the really funny part of this story. So they say that they still support Trump's agenda. Even after all this, they still support his agenda, whatever the hell that is. And I guess, they support giving all of their money to billionaires, it seems, in tax breaks. And even though they don't necessarily question the vote count, they believe that Democrats had unfair advantages in the 2020 election because Trump allies were censored on social media and because of voting rules that were implemented due to COVID. Yeah. So Democrats had the advantage, even though, there were things like Louis DeJoy running the post office, and all of those vote by mail ballots had to go through him and his people when he was dismantling machines and doing everything he could to slow down the mail. Things like that. Yeah. Okay. Projection much? So, but these sources told the Rolling Stone that they are cooperating in the investigation because they don't agree with the violence that took place on January 6th. And I think really what is at the core of it is that they're just a little bit bitter towards Trump, just a teeny bit. The planner said, quote, "I do feel abandoned by Trump. I'm actually pretty pissed about it, and I'm pissed at him." Yeah. So I think that's really, I don't think they had as much of an issue with the violence on January 6th as much as they had an issue with him not following through on pardoning them. And when asked what this organizer would say to Trump, given the chance, he or she replied, "What the fuck?" So, yeah. They claim that they were so shocked when he said, "Oh, we're going to march down to the Capitol." And they were like, "Oh, we got to get out of here." Really? Where have they been this whole time? Where have they been? Did they step up? Did they say anything until they were maybe in the hot seat? Until their actions, their planning was under the microscope? No. But here's the truly hysterical part. These people told Rolling Stone that in addition to the rally on January 6th, election fraud evidence was supposed to be revealed that day. The organizer said, quote, "We had also been coordinating with some of our congressional contacts on what would be presented after the individual objections. And our expectation was that was the day the storm was going to arrive. It was supposed to be the best evidence that they had been secretly gathering." And they claim to have discussed this in numerous calls with Gozer and Green and their teams, as well as Mo Brooks. But oh my God. So they had secret evidence of election fraud. Secret. Do these people have any clue how ignorant they sound? Do they think anything through? And they claim that we're the sheep. Over 60 court cases, over 60 cases. They were all tossed out. When you show your secret evidence in court, if you really want to win, if you have actual verifiable evidence, real evidence, you don't keep it a secret. You show it in court. These people, oh my God. Okay. So anyway, everyone named by these two have either declined to comment or they've denied the allegations. Everyone except Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course. Her communications director tried to deflect. They tried the whole whataboutism BS, saying that Greene was simply objecting to the certification of the vote, just like Democrats have done. Yeah. Remember when Democrats lied about Republicans rigging voting machines, and then they objected to the certification of Bush and Trump as president, and thousands of Democratic voters broke into the Capitol and smeared feces on the wall and caused millions of dollars worth of damage and then assaulted hundreds of police officers? Remember when that happened? Yeah, neither do I. It's such a joke. Such a complete and utter joke. Anyway, guys. Yeah. So like I said, mainstream media missed the point, I think, entirely. We need to focus on that blanket pardon part of this whole thing. And keep in mind, Gozer is even hated by his own family. This is the guy, if you recall, who had all of his brothers and sisters, with maybe the exception of one, came out before the election and told people not to vote for their brother because he was a racist. He was anti-Semite, I think they said. They were just brutal about what they said about their own brother. So anyway, I'll keep you posted on this. As always, thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.